I'm Scarlett, and I never thought I'd be sitting in a hospital ICU at 23, watching my father fight for his life because of pure, calculated cruelty. But here I am, holding his pale hand while machines beep around us, all because my stepmother decided that her jealousy was worth more than human decency. It started 3 years ago when Dad married Linda. I was 20 then, still grieving my mother who had passed away from cancer 2 years earlier. Dad had been so broken after Mom died that when he met Linda at a grief support group, I was actually happy for him. I thought maybe he'd found someone who understood loss, someone who could help him heal. How naive I was. Linda moved into our family home, the house where I'd grown up, where Mom had planted her rose garden, where every corner held memories of the woman who raised me with such love and patience. At first, Linda seemed to respect that. She'd smile when I talked about Mom, nod when Dad shared stories about their 20-year marriage. But I started noticing small things. Mom's favorite coffee mug would mysteriously disappear from the kitchen. The family photos on the mantle would get rearranged, with Mom's pictures pushed to the back. When I confronted Dad about it, he'd just say, "Linda's trying to make this feel like home for her too, sweetheart. We need to be understanding." But understanding became enabling, and enabling became watching my mother's memory get slowly erased from her own house. The breaking point came last month, during Thanksgiving dinner. We had the whole family over my Aunt Sarah, Uncle Mike, my cousins. Linda had cooked the meal, and everyone was complimenting her, but then Aunt Sarah started talking about Mom's famous stuffing recipe. "Oh, Margaret made the most incredible stuffing," she said, her eyes lighting up. "Scarlett, do you remember how she'd get up at 5 in the morning just to make sure everything was perfect?" I smiled, feeling warm at the memory. She'd let me help stuff the turkey when I was little. She always said cooking was an act of love. The whole table nodded, sharing their own memories of Mom's kindness, her laughter, how she'd always make sure everyone felt welcome in our home. But I watched Linda's face throughout this conversation. Her smile became more and more forced, her knuckles white as she gripped her wine glass. When my cousin mentioned how Mom had helped her through her divorce, Linda abruptly stood up and started clearing plates, even though people were still eating. "Linda," Dad said gently, "sit down, enjoy dinner." "I'm fine," she snapped, but I could see she wasn't. After everyone left, I heard them arguing in their bedroom. I couldn't make out the words, but Linda's voice was sharp, angry. Dad's responses were quiet, apologetic. That night, I realized Linda hadn't just married my father. She'd married a ghost she could never compete with, and instead of finding peace with that, she'd declared war on my mother's memory. The war escalated quickly after that Thanksgiving. Linda became passive-aggressive in ways that were hard to pinpoint but impossible to ignore. She'd accidentally throw away mail addressed to Mom that still sometimes came to the house. She rearranged Mom's china cabinet, mixing Mom's delicate porcelain with her own cheap dishes. When I asked her about it, she'd say, "Oh, I was just organizing. I thought it looked better this way." But the most painful part was watching Dad. He was caught between honoring his late wife's memory and keeping peace with his new one. I'd see him looking longingly at Mom's pictures, then quickly look away when Linda entered the room. He stopped talking about Mom altogether unless Linda wasn't around, and even then, he seemed guilty about it. I tried to have a conversation with Linda directly. I found her in the kitchen one evening, doing dishes. "Linda," I said carefully, "I know this situation isn't easy for any of us, but Mom was a huge part of our lives for 20 years. Dad and I need to be able to remember her without it being a problem." She didn't turn around, just kept scrubbing the same plate over and over. "Your mother is dead, Scarlett," she said flatly. "I'm here now. I'm his wife now. Maybe it's time you both accepted that and moved on." The coldness in her voice shocked me. "Moving on doesn't mean forgetting," I said. "Dad loved her. They had a beautiful marriage. That doesn't take anything away from what you two have." Finally, she turned around, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before, pure hatred. "Doesn't it? Do you have any idea what it's like being married to a man who talks to his dead wife's picture every morning? Who keeps her jewelry box on the dresser like she's coming back? Who compares every meal I cook to hers? Dad doesn't. Your father is still married to a ghost, Scarlett, and as long as every piece of her is still in this house, I'll never be anything more than a placeholder." I stared at her, finally understanding. This wasn't about respect or moving forward. This was about Linda's deep insecurity. Her need to completely replace my mother rather than simply add to our family. But understanding her motives didn't make me sympathetic. If anything, it made me angrier. "Those aren't just objects, Linda. They're all we have left of her." "Well, maybe that's the problem," she said, turning back to the dishes. "I should have seen it coming after that conversation. I should have moved Mom's things to my apartment, should have convinced Dad to put them in storage. But I never imagined Linda would go as far as she did. I thought even she had limits. I was wrong." The call came on a Tuesday night in December. I was at my apartment, about 20 minutes from Dad's house, when my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Linda's name flashed on the screen, and immediately my heart started pounding. Late-night calls are never good news. "Scarlett?" Her voice was slurred, and I could tell she'd been drinking. "I did it. I finally did what needed to be done." Linda, what are you talking about? Where's Dad? She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. It was bitter, victorious. Your precious daddy is asleep. Took some of his sleeping pills after dinner. He has no idea what I've accomplished tonight. What did you accomplish? I was already grabbing my keys, heading for the door. I set us all free, Scarlett. Free from the ghost that's been haunting this house. Free from St. Margaret and all her perfect little memories. My blood ran cold. Linda, what did you do? I burned it all. The words hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean you burned it all? Every single thing. She was enjoying this, savoring each word. Her clothes, her jewelry box, her photo albums, those stupid love letters your father kept in his dresser drawer, her recipe box, her books, that ridiculous wedding dress she kept in the closet. All of it. Gone. I was running to my car now, phone pressed to my ear, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. Linda, tell me you're lying. Tell me this is some sick joke. Oh, I'm not lying, and I took pictures for you, sweetheart. Want to see what liberation looks like? My phone started buzzing with incoming texts. Photo after photo came through images of a bonfire in our backyard, flames consuming things I recognized. Mom's blue silk scarf that she wore to every special occasion. The wooden jewelry box Dad had made her for their 10th anniversary. Photo albums filled with pictures from my childhood, my parents' wedding, family vacations. And with each photo, Linda had added laughing emojis. Yellow cartoon faces cackling at the destruction of my mother's memory. You psychotic bitch, I screamed into the phone, not caring about language, not caring about anything except getting to that house. How could you do this? How could you destroy things that can never be replaced? Easy, she said. And I could hear her taking another drink of whatever she was consuming. I soaked them in lighter fluid and struck a match. Amazing how quickly 20 years of another woman's life can disappear. I was driving dangerously fast now, running red lights, my vision blurred with tears. Dad is going to leave you. The moment he wakes up and sees what you've done, he's going to throw you out of that house. Will he? We'll see about that, Scarlett. After all, I'm his wife now, in sickness and in health, remember? And your dear daddy hasn't been feeling so well lately. All that stress about his precious Margaret's things. It's been hard on his heart. The way she said it made my skin crawl. There was something threatening in her tone. Something that suggested she knew exactly how fragile Dad's health had become since his heart attack 2 years ago. If you hurt him, I started, but she cut me off. Hurt him? Sweetheart, I'm saving him. Saving both of us. Tomorrow morning, when he wakes up, there will be no more reminders of his dead wife cluttering up our home. He'll have no choice but to move forward with me. He'll hate you forever. Love and hate are closer than you think, Scarlett. Either way, he'll finally see me. Really see me. Not just as a poor substitute for St. Margaret. I pulled into the driveway and could see the smoke still rising from the backyard. The smell of burning fabric and melting plastic filled the air. Linda was sitting on the back porch, a bottle of wine in her hand, watching the last embers of my mother's life turn to ash. I have to go, she said into the phone. Your father's starting to stir upstairs. Time to play the concerned wife who was just trying to clean up some old clutter and accidentally started a little fire. Linda, don't you dare! But she'd already hung up. I sat in my car for a moment, staring at the house where I'd grown up, trying to process the magnitude of what had just happened. Everything that connected me to my mother, every physical reminder of the woman who had shaped me into who I was, had been reduced to ashes by a woman so consumed with jealousy that she'd committed what felt like murder. I got out of the car and walked to the backyard. The fire was mostly out now, but I could still identify fragments of destroyed memories. The corner of a photo album, the metal clasp from Mom's purse, melted remnants of her favorite coffee mug. 20 years of love, reduced to trash. That's when I heard Dad scream from inside the house. I ran toward the house as fast as I could, Linda's drunken laughter following me. The back door was unlocked, and I rushed through the kitchen, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Dad's bedroom door was open, and I could see him standing in the middle of the room in his pajamas, staring at the empty dresser where Mom's jewelry box had always sat. Dad? I called out. He turned to me, and his face was gray, his eyes wide with confusion and panic. Scarlett, where? Where are your mother's things? Her jewelry box was right here, her picture. He gestured to the empty nightstand where Mom's framed photo had been for 3 years. Dad, I need you to sit down. No, I don't understand. Linda said there was a fire outside, but she said it was just some old boxes, she said. He was breathing heavily now, his hand pressed to his chest. Where is everything, Scarlett? Linda appeared in the doorway behind me, no longer drunk acting, now playing the role of concerned wife. Richard, honey, you need to calm down. You're getting yourself worked up over nothing. Nothing? Dad's voice cracked. Margaret's jewelry box is nothing? Her photographs are nothing? Richard, those were just things, objects. They were taking up so much space, and some of them were getting damaged by moisture. I thought it would be better to... You thought? Dad's face was turning red now, and I could see a vein throbbing in his temple. You thought you had the right to decide what to do with my late wife's belongings without asking me? I'm your wife now, Richard. This is my house too. I was just trying to make room for our life together, for our future. Those things were holding you back from moving forward with me. I watched my father's face as the full realization hit him. You burned them, he whispered. You burned everything. It was an accident. Don't lie to me, he was shouting now, something I'd rarely seen him do. You called Scarlett and told her you did it on purpose. You sent her pictures. Linda shot me a venomous look, realizing I'd told him everything. Richard, please, just listen to me. I can explain. Explain what? How you destroyed irreplaceable memories? How you took it upon yourself to erase my first wife from this house? How you burned 20 years of my life because you were jealous of a dead woman? I wasn't jealous, Linda screamed, dropping the concerned wife act entirely. I was tired. Tired of living in Margaret's shadow. Tired of competing with a ghost. Tired of being second place in my own marriage. Then you should have talked to me. You should have told me how you felt instead of. Dad grabbed his chest, his breathing becoming labored. Dad, are you okay? I moved toward him, but he waved me away. Instead of committing the most heartless, selfish act I've ever witnessed, he finished, his voice getting weaker. Richard, you're scaring me, Linda said, and for the first time, I heard genuine concern in her voice. Maybe you should sit down. Don't you dare pretend to care about his health now, I snapped at her. This is your fault, all of this. Dad was breathing heavily, sweat beading on his forehead. I can't believe you would do this, Linda. Those things weren't just mine. They were Scarlett's connection to her mother. Her inheritance. Her. He grabbed his chest again, harder this time, and his face went pale. Dad! I reached for him just as his knees buckled. Richard! Linda screamed. He collapsed onto the bedroom floor, clutching his chest, his breathing shallow and rapid. I dropped to my knees beside him, my hands hovering over his body, not knowing what to do. Call 911, I yelled at Linda, but she was frozen in place, staring down at my father with horror. Call 911 now, I screamed. And finally, she snapped into action, fumbling for her phone. I held Dad's hand as we waited for the ambulance, whispering reassurances I didn't believe. You're going to be okay. Just breathe. Help is coming. But his skin was cold and clammy, his pulse weak and irregular. Scarlett, he whispered, his eyes struggling to focus on mine. Don't try to talk, Dad. Save your strength. I'm sorry, I should have protected. Should have stopped her. This isn't your fault, I said, tears streaming down my face. None of this is your fault. The paramedics arrived and took over, working efficiently to stabilize him before loading him into the ambulance. I rode with him to the hospital, holding his hand, praying to any god that would listen not to take him from me too. Behind us, Linda followed in her car, and I could see her in the rearview mirror, crying into her phone, probably calling family members to tell them some twisted version of the story where she was the victim. But I knew the truth. My father was fighting for his life because the woman he'd trusted with his heart had broken it in the cruelest way possible. The next 72 hours in the ICU were a blur of medical terms I didn't understand, machines I'd never seen before, and the constant fear that I might lose the only parent I had left. Dad had suffered a massive heart attack, what the doctors called a widowmaker caused by stress and emotional trauma, the same kind of stress that had contributed to his first heart attack 2 years earlier when Mom died. I barely left his bedside, catching scattered moments of sleep in the uncomfortable hospital chair, eating whatever the nurses brought me from the cafeteria. Dad drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes squeezing my hand when he heard my voice, sometimes staring at the ceiling with vacant eyes. Linda came and went, playing the role of devastated wife for the medical staff and visiting family members. She brought flowers, spoke in hushed, concerned tones to the nurses, and made sure everyone saw her devotion. But when it was just the three of us in that room, she barely looked at Dad, and she definitely didn't look at me. On the second day, while Dad was sleeping, Linda finally tried to talk to me. Scarlett, she said quietly, I know you're angry with me, but we need to think about your father's recovery. The doctors say stress is the worst thing for him right now. I didn't look up from the book I was pretending to read. Then maybe you shouldn't have burned all his dead wife's belongings and given him a heart attack. It was never supposed to happen like this. I just wanted us to be able to move forward as a family. By destroying our family's history? By making room for new memories? Can't you understand that? Every day in that house was a reminder that I'll never be enough. That I'll never measure up to your perfect mother. I finally looked at her, and what I saw surprised me. She looked genuinely miserable. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair unwashed and pulled back carelessly. But my sympathy only extended so far. My mom wasn't perfect, Linda, but she was loved, and she deserved to be remembered. What you did wasn't about making room for new memories, it was about erasing old ones out of spite. I made a mistake. You made a choice. A deliberate, calculated choice to hurt us in the deepest way possible. Linda was quiet for a long moment, staring at Dad's unconscious form. What happens now? She asked. I don't know. But I do know that when Dad wakes up, he's going to have to decide if he can forgive you for this. And honestly, I hope he can't. She left shortly after that, and I was alone with Dad again. That evening, he woke up more alert than he'd been since the heart attack. The first thing he did was look around the room, confused. Where am I? He asked, his voice hoarse from the breathing tube they'd removed that morning. "You're in the hospital, Dad. You had a heart attack. Do you remember?" His eyes filled with pain as the memories came back. Linda burned everything. "I know. Your mother's wedding dress. The letters I wrote her when we were dating. The baby book she made when you were born." Each item he listed broke my heart a little more. "I know, Dad. I saw the ashes." He closed his eyes, tears leaking from the corners. "How could she do that, Scarlett? How could someone be so cruel?" "I don't know, but we're going to get through this, okay? You're going to recover, and we're going to figure out what comes next. I can't go back to that house, not with her in it. Then we'll figure something else out. Maybe you can stay with me for a while, until we sort things out." He squeezed my hand weakly. "I failed you. I failed your mother. I brought someone into our home who destroyed everything she left behind." "Dad, no. You were trying to heal, trying to find happiness again. Mom would have wanted that for you." "Would she have? Or would she have wanted me to protect her memory? To protect you?" I didn't have an answer for that. All I knew was that my father was alive, and that was all that mattered right now. Everything else, the destroyed memories, the broken trust, the uncertain future would have to wait. But Linda wasn't content to wait. Over the next few days, while Dad slowly recovered, she began her campaign to rewrite history. It started with phone calls to family members. I first noticed something was wrong when my Aunt Sarah came to visit Dad on his 4th day in the ICU. She seemed distant, almost cold, which was completely unlike her usual warm demeanor. "How are you feeling, Richard?" she asked, but there was something formal about it, like she was asking out of obligation rather than genuine concern. "Better," Dad replied. "The doctors think I can go home in a few days." "Home," she repeated, and I caught the meaningful look she shot me. "Scarlett, can I talk to you outside for a minute?" I followed her into the hallway, confused by her tone. Aunt Sarah had been like a second mother to me after Mom died, always checking in, always offering support. But now she looked at me like I was a stranger. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I asked. "I talked to Linda last night," she said. "She told me what really happened the night Richard had his heart attack." My stomach dropped. "What did she tell you?" "She said you came to the house screaming at her, making accusations, getting your father all worked up over some old boxes she was cleaning out of storage. She said you've been harassing her for months, making her feel unwelcome in her own home." "That's not what happened," I said, my voice rising. "She burned Mom's things, Sarah, everything, on purpose. She called me drunk and bragging about it." "Linda doesn't drink, Scarlett. You know that." Actually, I didn't know that. Linda had been drinking wine at every family dinner I'd attended, but apparently she'd been more careful around Dad's side of the family. "She sent me pictures, Sarah. Pictures of Mom's things burning with laughing emojis. She said you've been sending her threatening messages. She showed me some disturbing texts." This conversation was becoming surreal. "What texts?" "I didn't send her any texts except asking where Dad was that night." "Scarlett," Sarah said, her voice gentle but firm, "I know you've been struggling since your mother died. We all understand that. But your father deserves to be happy. Linda makes him happy. And if you can't accept that, maybe you need to step back from this family for a while." I stared at her, speechless. This was my aunt, my mother's sister, telling me to step back from my own family because my psychotic stepmother had convinced her I was the problem. "Did she tell you about the photos she sent me?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the messages from that night. But when I got to Linda's texts, they were gone. All of them. The photos, the cruel messages, everything had been deleted. "There's nothing there, Scarlett." "No, they were here. She sent me pictures of everything burning." I frantically checked my recently deleted folder, but it was empty too. Somehow, Linda had remotely deleted the evidence from my phone. "Honey," Sarah said, "I think the stress of your father's heart attack might be affecting you more than you realize. Maybe you should talk to someone." I wanted to scream. Linda had not only destroyed my mother's belongings, she was now systematically destroying my credibility with our family. And she was doing it while my father lay unconscious in a hospital bed. "Sarah, please. You knew my mother. You know how much those things meant to Dad and me. Why would I lie about this?" "I don't think you're lying. I think you're confused and hurting, and maybe you're remembering things differently than they happened." After she left, I sat in the hospital bathroom and cried until I couldn't breathe. This was Linda's strategy: make me look unstable, make everyone think I was jealous and vindictive, turn me into the villain of this story. And it was working. Over the next 2 days, more family members came to visit, and I could see it in their faces they'd all heard Linda's version of events. Uncle Mike was polite but distant. My cousins seemed uncomfortable around me. Even Dad's best friend Frank gave me looks like I was some kind of troublemaker. Linda had spent the time while I was focused on Dad's recovery calling everyone we knew, spinning a tale about the crazy stepdaughter who couldn't accept her father's new marriage, who had harassed his poor wife to the point where she had to clean out some old storage boxes, and who had then viciously attacked her when she found out, causing Dad's heart attack. "She's telling people I caused your heart attack," I told Dad when we were alone. "What?" "She's convinced everyone that I'm the problem, that I've been harassing her, that I got you worked up that night and caused your heart attack." Dad struggled to sit up higher in his bed, anger flashing in his eyes. That's insane. Is it? Because half our family is looking at me like I'm the villain now. She deleted the evidence, Dad. The photos she sent me, the messages, they're all gone from my phone somehow. We'll figure this out, sweetheart. When I get home, we'll sit everyone down and tell them exactly what happened. Will we? Because she's living in your house right now, playing the devoted wife, while you're stuck here. By the time you get home, who knows what other lies she'll have spread. But Dad was getting tired, his eyes heavy with medication and exhaustion. Just give me some time to get better. Then we'll deal with Linda. I nodded, but I could see what was happening. Linda was smart, diabolically smart. She was using Dad's illness and my emotional state to reframe the entire narrative. By the time he recovered, she'd have positioned herself as the victim and me as the unstable aggressor. That night, I got a call from Linda herself. Scarlett, her voice was sweet, concerned. I know we've had our differences, but I want you to know that I forgive you for the things you said the other night. Grief makes people do and say things they don't mean. I don't need your forgiveness for telling the truth. I've been talking to some family members and they're worried about you. Maybe it would be best if you took some time away from your father while he recovers. The stress of family conflict is the last thing he needs right now. You're not going to drive me away from my father. I'm not trying to drive you away, sweetheart. I'm trying to protect Richard's health. The doctors say stress could cause another heart attack. Is that what you want? The manipulation was masterful. She was using Dad's condition as a weapon against me, making me the bad guy for wanting to be near my father while he recovered. I know what you did, Linda. And eventually, Dad will see you for what you really are. What am I, Scarlett? A destroyer. Someone so empty inside that you'd rather burn down other people's lives than build your own. That's a very hurtful thing to say. I certainly hope the rest of the family doesn't hear you talking like this. They might start to think you really are as unstable as you seem. She hung up, leaving me staring at the phone, realizing that I was in a battle I might not be able to win. Dad came home from the hospital on a Tuesday morning, weak but stable. I'd arranged to take time off work to help with his recovery, but when we pulled into the driveway, Linda was waiting on the porch with a wheelchair and a bright smile, playing the perfect caregiver. Welcome home, honey, she cooed, helping Dad from my car into the wheelchair. I've prepared your favorite soup, and Dr. Martinez called to confirm your follow-up appointment. She was good, I had to give her that. Every action calculated to show what a devoted wife she was, how well she was taking care of him. Dad, still weak and on heavy medications, seemed grateful for her attention. Thank you, Scarlett, for bringing him home, Linda said to me. But her tone suggested that my job was now done, that I could leave. I'm planning to stay for a few days, I said, to help Dad with his recovery. Oh, that's sweet of you, but I think Richard needs quiet and rest more than anything. Too many people around might be overwhelming. Dad looked between us, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Linda, Scarlett can stay as long as she wants. She's my daughter. Of course she can, Linda agreed quickly. I just want what's best for your recovery. I helped Dad get settled in the living room, noticing immediately how different the house felt. All the family photos that had been on the side tables were gone. The throw blanket Mom had crocheted for the couch had been replaced with something new and generic. It was like Linda had used Dad's hospitalization as an opportunity to complete her erasure of my mother's presence. That evening, while Dad napped, I found Linda in the kitchen preparing dinner. We need to talk, I said. Do we? I thought I'd made my position clear. Your position is built on lies. I know what you did, and eventually Dad will remember everything clearly, not through the haze of cardiac medications. She turned from the stove, and for a moment, I saw her drop the mask entirely. The sweet, concerned wife disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. Here's what I know, Scarlett. Your father is recovering from a major heart attack. The stress of conflict could literally kill him. So every time you start drama, every time you make accusations, every time you upset the peaceful home I'm trying to create for his recovery, you're putting his life at risk. You put his life at risk when you burned Mom's things. I cleaned out some old boxes that were cluttering up our storage room and causing moisture damage to other things. It was a practical decision. Stop lying. You called me drunk and gloating about destroying everything. I think the stress of your father's heart attack affected your memory, sweetheart. I certainly never called you drunk. I don't drink alcohol, and I definitely never gloated about anything. I was devastated that some of Margaret's things were damaged in that accidental fire. She was rewriting reality in real time, and doing it so smoothly that for a moment I almost doubted myself. Almost. The family believes me, Scarlett. They're concerned about your mental state, about your ability to accept your father's new marriage. If you keep pushing this narrative, they're going to start wondering if you need professional help. And if I back down, if I pretend to believe your version of events, then we can all move forward as a family. You can visit your father, be part of his recovery, and we can put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us. I stared at her, realizing the impossible position she'd put me in. If I continued to fight her lies, I'd look increasingly unstable to our family, and Linda would use that to limit my access to Dad. If I stayed quiet, she'd win completely. Dad would never know the truth about what she'd done. I need some air, I said, walking toward the back door. Of course, Linda said sweetly. The backyard is lovely this time of evening. I stepped outside and immediately regretted it. The area where she'd burned Mom's things had been completely cleaned up, new grass seed planted, new flowers arranged in decorative pots. It looked like a magazine spread, with no evidence of the destruction that had happened there just a week earlier. But as I walked around the yard, I noticed something Linda had missed. Behind the garden shed, partially hidden by overgrown bushes, I found a few items that had apparently been blown away from the fire by the wind. A partially burned page from one of Mom's recipe notebooks, the melted corner of a picture frame, and most importantly, a fragment of one of the photos Linda had sent me. It was just a corner of a phone screen showing part of the timestamp and one of the laughing emojis, but it was something. Physical evidence that the fire had happened, that photos had been taken. I carefully collected the pieces and hid them in my purse, my heart pounding. It wasn't much, but it was proof that Linda's accidental fire story was false. That night, I lay in my childhood bedroom, the only room in the house that Linda hadn't completely redecorated, and tried to figure out my next move. I could hear her downstairs, talking on the phone in hushed tones, probably continuing her campaign to paint me as the unstable stepdaughter. Around midnight, I heard voices from Dad's bedroom. Linda's voice, sweet and manipulative, mixed with Dad's weaker responses. I crept to my bedroom door and listened. "Richard, honey, I'm worried about Scarlett." "What do you mean?" "Her behavior since your heart attack? It's been concerning. The things she's been saying about me, the accusations. I think the stress of almost losing you affected her more than we realized. Scarlett's always been emotional. It's not a bad thing." "I agree, but this goes beyond emotional. She's been telling family members that I deliberately destroyed Margaret's things, that I caused your heart attack on purpose. It's starting to sound paranoid, Richard. I remember being upset about Margaret's things being gone." "Of course you were upset. I was upset too when that accidental fire damaged some of her belongings. But Scarlett has turned it into this elaborate conspiracy theory where I'm some kind of villain." I clenched my fists, listening to her twist the truth with Dad too medicated and confused to see through it. "Maybe," Linda continued, "it would be better for everyone if Scarlett went back to her own apartment. Just until she can get some help, some perspective. I don't want to send my daughter away. I'm not suggesting you send her away permanently, just until she's more stable. The constant conflict isn't good for your recovery, and I'm worried about what she might do or say next." I heard Dad sigh deeply, and I knew Linda was winning. She was systematically isolating me from the only family I had left, using Dad's illness as leverage. The next morning, Dad asked to speak with me privately. "Scarlett," he said gently, "Linda thinks maybe you should go back to your apartment for a while, just until things calm down." My heart broke. "Dad, she's manipulating you. She's lying about everything." "I know you believe that, sweetheart, but I can't handle conflict right now. The doctors were very clear stress could cause another heart attack. So she gets to stay and I have to leave? It's just temporary, until I'm stronger, until we can all think more clearly." I looked at my father, pale, fragile, trusting the woman who had literally broken his heart, and realized I was losing him to her lies. But I also realized something else. If I kept fighting this battle the way I'd been fighting it, I would lose completely. "Okay, Dad," I said quietly, "I'll go back to my apartment. But I want you to know that I love you, and I'm not giving up on us." He squeezed my hand. "I love you too, Scarlett. This isn't permanent." But as I packed my things, listening to Linda downstairs, making lunch and humming cheerfully, I knew it would be permanent unless I found a way to expose her lies. And I was pretty sure I knew how to do it. I moved back to my apartment that afternoon, but I didn't retreat. Instead, I regrouped. Linda had won the first battle by controlling the narrative and isolating me from Dad. But she'd made one crucial mistake: she'd underestimated me. The first thing I did was take the evidence I'd found behind the shed to a friend who worked in digital forensics. The burned fragment of the phone screen wasn't much, but he was able to confirm that it came from a smartphone photo taken the night of Dad's heart attack. It was circumstantial evidence, but it was something. Next, I started documenting everything. Every conversation with family members who'd heard Linda's version of events, every inconsistency in her story, every lie she'd told. I recorded phone calls where legally permitted and kept detailed notes of everything else. But my breakthrough came from an unexpected source. I was having coffee with my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who'd known my family for 15 years, when she mentioned something that made my blood run cold. "I'm so sorry about your father's heart attack, dear," she said. "But I have to ask, is everything all right with your stepmother? I've seen her in your backyard at odd hours lately." "What do you mean?" "Well, the night before your father's heart attack, I couldn't sleep and I was looking out my bedroom window around midnight. I saw her out there with what looked like gasoline or lighter fluid, pouring it on a pile of things. Then she set it on fire." My hand started shaking. "Mrs. Chen, would you be willing to write down what you saw? Maybe talk to some other people about it?" "Of course, dear." I was wondering if I should have called the fire department, but it seemed like she had it under control. This was exactly what I needed, an independent witness who could confirm that Linda had deliberately set the fire. But I knew I had to be careful about how I used this information. Linda had already painted me as unstable. If I came charging back with accusations, she'd just claim I was harassing elderly neighbors to support my delusions. So I waited. I bided my time, visited Dad when Linda wasn't there, and slowly started rebuilding relationships with family members by being calm, rational, and focused on Dad's recovery rather than my grievances with Linda. It was during one of these visits, 3 weeks after Dad came home from the hospital, that I noticed something that would change everything. Dad was napping in his recliner when I arrived, and Linda was on the phone in the kitchen. I could hear her talking to someone, and her tone was different, sharper, more calculating than the sweet voice she used around Dad and family. No, he still doesn't remember clearly, she was saying. The medications keep him confused about the details. I know, but we have to be patient. Once the will is updated and the house is legally mine, we can talk about the next phase. I froze. The will? The next phase? Who was she talking to? I crept closer to the kitchen, my heart pounding. The doctor says another significant stress event could be fatal, Linda continued. And Scarlett is providing plenty of stress all on her own. No, I don't think we'll need to do anything dramatic. She's already making herself look unstable to the family. I pulled out my phone and started recording, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. The life insurance alone is worth $500,000, Linda said. Plus the house, his retirement accounts. I just need him to live long enough to update the beneficiaries and then we'll see what happens. I nearly dropped the phone. Linda wasn't just a jealous stepmother, she was actively planning Dad's death. Scarlett, Dad's voice called from the living room. I quickly stopped the recording and moved away from the kitchen, my mind reeling. Coming, Dad. Linda emerged from the kitchen moments later, her phone nowhere to be seen, wearing her usual sweet smile. Oh, Scarlett! I didn't hear you come in. I just got here, I managed to say, hoping my voice sounded normal. I was just talking to my sister about Richard's recovery. She's been so worried about him. Her sister, who was apparently helping her plan my father's murder. I spent the next hour visiting with Dad, acting normal while my mind raced. I had recording of Linda essentially confessing to planning Dad's death, but I knew I had to be smart about how I used it. If I went to the police immediately, she'd claim I'd doctored the recording. If I confronted her directly, she'd disappear the evidence and probably accelerate whatever timeline she was working on. But I had an idea, a risky one, but potentially the only way to save Dad's life and expose Linda for what she really was. That night, I called Dad's lawyer, Mr. Harrison, who had handled Mom's estate and Dad's will. Mr. Harrison, this is Scarlett. I need to ask you something confidential about my father's will. I'm not sure I can discuss your father's private affairs, Scarlett. Has he recently asked you to update his will or change any beneficiaries? There was a long pause. Why do you ask? Because I think his wife is planning to kill him for the inheritance. Another pause, longer this time. Scarlett, that's a very serious accusation. I have evidence. Can you meet with me tomorrow? Yes, come to my office at 10. The next morning, I played the recording for Mr. Harrison and showed him all the evidence I'd gathered. Mrs. Chen's written statement about the fire, the physical evidence from the backyard, the documentation of Linda's lies to family members. This is disturbing, he said when I finished. But it's also largely circumstantial. The recording is concerning, but it could be interpreted different ways. She talked about waiting for him to update his will, and then mentioned that another stress event could be fatal. What other interpretation is there? A good defense lawyer could argue that she was simply discussing worst-case scenarios, not planning them. So what do I do? Wait for her to kill my father? Mr. Harrison was quiet for a long moment, then looked at me with determination. There might be another way. Something that would force Linda to show her true colors while protecting your father. What? We set a trap. The trap Mr. Harrison suggested was elegant in its simplicity, but it required perfect timing and nerves of steel. We would stage a fake medical emergency with Dad, something serious enough to make Linda think her timeline needed to accelerate, but controlled enough to keep Dad safe. If she's really planning what you think she's planning, Mr. Harrison explained, and if she believes your father is dying anyway, she might do something desperate to speed up the process, something we can catch her doing. It took 2 weeks to set everything up. First, we had to bring Dad into the plan, which was the hardest part. When I finally told him everything, the real story about the fire, the recording of Linda's phone call, my suspicions about her ultimate plan, he was devastated. I brought a killer into our home, he whispered, sitting in Mr. Harrison's office, staring at his hands. I trusted someone who wants me dead. Dad, you couldn't have known. She's been manipulating everyone. But the signs were there, weren't they? The jealousy, the cruelty. I chose to ignore them because I was lonely. We can deal with the guilt later, Mr. Harrison said gently. Right now, we need to focus on stopping her before she actually hurts you. The plan was this. Dad would pretend to have another, more serious heart episode. We'd call 911, But Linda wouldn't know that we'd also contacted the police and asked them to monitor the situation. During the emergency, I would be recording everything, and we'd see how Linda reacted when she thought Dad might die. If she was innocent, if I'd misunderstood everything, she'd be genuinely panicked and trying to help save his life. If she was guilty, she might do something to ensure he didn't survive the trip to the hospital. We chose a Thursday afternoon when Linda thought I was at work. Dad was supposed to call her from upstairs, claiming chest pains, and see what happened. I was hidden in the closet of Mom's old sewing room with my phone recording when Dad made the call. "Linda!" he called, his voice weak and panicked. "Linda, I need help!" I heard her running up the stairs, her voice full of concern. "Richard, what's wrong?" "My chest, it hurts so bad, worse than before. I think I'm having another heart attack." "Oh no, honey, okay, just breathe. Let me call 911. So far, so good. Linda was acting exactly like a concerned wife should. I started to wonder if I'd been wrong about everything, if my grief and anger had made me paranoid. But then I heard her on the phone with 911, and something in her voice changed. "Yes, my husband is having chest pains. 58 years old. He had a heart attack 3 weeks ago. Yes, I understand. How long will the ambulance take?" When she hung up, there was silence for a moment. Then I heard her talking to Dad again, but her voice was different now, colder, more clinical. "Richard, honey, the ambulance is on its way. But you need to listen to me carefully, okay? I need you to understand something. If you don't survive this heart attack, if this is the end, I want you to know that I tried to make you happy. I tried to be a good wife." "Linda, what are you talking about? Just help me." "I am helping you. I'm helping you understand that sometimes, when people are suffering, when they're in pain, it's kinder to let them go peacefully." My blood turned to ice. She was going to do something to him. "I don't understand. Your heart is damaged, Richard. Even if you survive this, you'll never really be healthy again. You'll be weak, dependent, a burden to everyone who loves you. Is that really how you want to live?" "I want to live, Linda. Please, just..." "Shh, honey. It's okay, just relax. Stop fighting it." I couldn't see what was happening from my hiding spot, but I could hear Dad's breathing becoming more labored, more panicked. "Linda, what are you doing?" I can't breathe." "It's okay, Richard, just let go, let yourself go." That's when I burst out of the closet, phone still recording, and saw Linda pressing a pillow over Dad's face while he struggled weakly beneath her. "Get away from him!" I screamed, lunging toward the bed. Linda spun around, her face twisted with rage and shock. "You! What are you doing here?" I shoved her away from Dad, who was gasping and coughing, very much alive and unhurt because this had all been staged. Because Dad had never actually been having a heart attack, but Linda didn't know that. "You just tried to murder my father," I said, my phone still recording her shocked face. "I was trying to help him. He was suffering. By smothering him with a pillow? You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. I have recordings of you planning this, Linda. I know about the insurance money, about waiting for him to update his will. I know everything." That's when we heard the sirens, not from the ambulance Linda had called, but from the police cars that had been waiting for our signal. Linda's face went through a series of expressions: shock, fear, calculation, and finally, rage. "You little bitch," she snarled. "You think you're so smart? You think you've won? I think I've saved my father's life. Your father is weak. He would have died anyway within a year. I was just speeding up the inevitable." "Why?" Dad asked, sitting up in bed, his voice broken. "Why did you want me dead?" Linda looked at him with genuine disgust. "Because you're pathetic, Richard. You're a weak, grieving man who could never love me the way you loved your precious Margaret. At least this way, I'd get something out of the misery of being married to you." The police arrived moments later, and Linda was arrested for attempted murder. As they led her away in handcuffs, she looked back at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Scarlett," she said. "You'll never be able to prove what really happened the night I cleaned out those boxes." But she was wrong about that, too. 3 months later, Linda was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 12 years in prison. The trial had been a media sensation, the jealous stepmother who burned family heirlooms and tried to kill her husband for insurance money. Every detail of her manipulation and cruelty came out in court, from the destroyed family photos to the systematic campaign to turn our relatives against me. Mrs. Chen's testimony about witnessing Linda deliberately set the fire was crucial, as was the recording of her confession to planning Dad's death. Linda's sister was also arrested as an accessory after investigators found evidence of their conspiracy in text messages and financial records. But perhaps the most damning evidence came from Linda's own phone, which investigators seized when they arrested her. She had been sloppy in her confidence, and the deleted photos she'd sent me were recovered from her device. The pictures of my mother's belongings burning, accompanied by those cruel laughing emojis, were presented to the jury. The judge called it one of the most callous and premeditated cases she'd ever seen. Dad and I attended every day of the trial, sitting together in the front row, finally united against the woman who had tried to destroy us both. It was painful to relive everything, the loss of Mom's belongings, the heart attack, the manipulation and lies. But it was also healing, in a way. The truth was finally out, and our family members who had believed Linda's lies now understood what had really happened. Aunt Sarah came to me after the verdict was read, tears in her eyes. "Scarlett, I am so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have known you would never lie about something like this." "She was very convincing," I said, hugging her. "She fooled everyone." Dad made a full recovery, both physically and emotionally. The stress of the trial had been difficult, but finally being free of Linda's manipulation allowed him to heal properly. We moved him into a new house, one with no memories of Linda, where he could start fresh. 6 months after the trial, as we were cleaning out some boxes in Dad's new attic, I found something that took my breath away. Hidden behind some old Christmas decorations was a small wooden box I'd never seen before. When I opened it, I found a letter in my mother's handwriting, addressed to me. "Dad," I called down the attic stairs, "you need to see this." He climbed up carefully, still taking his heart health seriously, and looked at the letter in my hands. "I've never seen that before," he said, puzzled. The letter was dated just 2 weeks before Mom died, and as I read it aloud, both Dad and I started crying. "My dearest Scarlett," it began, "if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and I hope it also means you and your father have found a way to heal from losing me. I'm writing this because I know how much you both love me, and I'm worried that my death will leave you frozen in grief, unable to move forward." The letter went on for 3 pages, filled with Mom's wisdom and love. She talked about wanting Dad to find happiness again, about hoping I would understand that loving someone new wouldn't diminish what they'd shared. She wrote about the importance of family, of protecting each other, of not letting anger or sadness consume us. But the part that made me sob was near the end. "Scarlett, my brave, beautiful daughter, I know you will face challenges I can't prepare you for, but I also know you have a strength inside you that comes from being loved completely and unconditionally. When life tries to break you, remember that you carry my love with you always. And remember that the most important thing isn't the objects we leave behind, it's the love we put into the world while we're here. My love for you and Dad will never burn away, no matter what happens to the things I touched." It was like Mom had somehow known we would need these words, this reminder of what really mattered. "She knew," Dad whispered. "Somehow, she knew we'd need this." We sat in that attic for hours, reading and rereading the letter, crying and laughing and remembering all the good times. For the first time since Mom died, I felt truly at peace with her loss. Linda had tried to erase my mother's memory by destroying her belongings, but she'd failed to understand the most important truth. Love can't be burned. The bonds between people, the lessons they teach us, the way they shape who we become, those things exist beyond physical objects. A year later, Dad met someone new, a kind, gentle woman named Carol, who had also lost her spouse to cancer. When he told me about her, I could see he was worried about my reaction. "Dad," I said, "I want you to be happy. Mom wanted you to be happy. The right person won't try to erase Mom's memory. They'll understand that she's part of what made you the man worth loving." Carol turned out to be exactly that kind of person. She never tried to replace Mom or compete with her memory. Instead, she honored it, asking to hear stories about Mom, encouraging Dad and me to keep traditions Mom had started. On what would have been Mom and Dad's 25th wedding anniversary, Carol surprised us by having Mom's wedding dress restored. She'd found a fragment of it that had survived Linda's fire and worked with a seamstress to recreate the entire dress from old photos. "I thought Scarlett might want to wear it someday," she said simply. "Every bride should have something beautiful from the women who loved her." I cried for an hour, but they were happy tears. Healing tears. As I write this now, sitting on the porch of Dad's new house, watching him and Carol tend to the garden, they planted together a garden that includes a section dedicated to Mom's favorite roses. I think about how close we came to losing everything. Not just Dad's life, but our family, our connection to Mom, our ability to trust and love again. Linda tried to burn down our lives, but she only made us stronger. She tried to isolate us from each other, but we fought our way back together. She tried to erase my mother's legacy, but she just taught us that love is indestructible. Sometimes, when I'm missing Mom especially hard, I read her letter again, and I remember that the most important inheritance she left me wasn't any object that could be burned. It was the strength to fight for the people I love, no matter how impossible the battle seems. Linda will be eligible for parole in 10 years. When that day comes, I'll be there at the hearing, ready to remind everyone exactly what she's capable of. But I'm not afraid of her anymore. She's just a bitter, empty person who couldn't create love, so she tried to destroy it instead. She failed. We survived. And Mom's love burns brighter than ever, in every kind thing we do, every time we choose healing over hatred, every moment we choose to build rather than destroy. Some fires burn things down, but the best fires, the ones lit by love, they just keep burning forever, warming everyone who comes near them. That's the fire my mother lit in our family. And no one, no matter how cruel, no matter how jealous, will ever be able to put it out.